Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the April 28th, 2026 edition of Indigenous Emergency Management News and Information You Can Use. We're going to be going through several updates on what's been going on around the country, including our usual weather outlook, our wildfire outlook, where flooding is occurring, and where we're going to start to see an increase in, fire danger activity because we are kind of circling around to maybe getting to normal weather for a Canadian spring, which can still bring some precipitation and cool weather, especially as we always seem to get hit with it at the May long weekend. But we have some weather statements to go through that are kind of still persisting through southern Ontario, in southern Quebec. So they're getting rainfall warnings, continued rainfall warnings in this area of Ontario. Like another 25 to 40 millimeters is going to be ending later today. Another 15 to 25 millimeters, then around Sault Ste. Marie, 15 to 25. And then as we get into Quebec, this 20 to 40 millimeters. And if we bring up the Google Flood Hub, which I'm kind of really liking right now as a data set for flooding in I mean, it lists around the world, but especially in Canada, we can see that it's just quite lit up in Ontario still due to all that precipitation and rain. So when we're looking at these rivers, we're getting indicators such as this, where there's going to be peak flows kind of hitting in today, tomorrow, well above what is considered an extreme flood, extreme, peak flow. So if you're in this part of the country, you can see where it's highest risk right now. And the flooding in Western Canada through Alberta, Saskatchewan, and the prairies, Manitoba, it's really started to dissipate. Just last week, there was a lot of darker, even we've been following Peguis in Manitoba. They're now agreeing with Fish River. So you can see their water levels are now below the warning level. So there's not much information coming out of the community right now into the news in terms of how they're coping with, the aftermath of their, major preparedness initiative. But these, I'll pull up my notes here that I grabbed. And if anybody wants a copy, they are always available on our Patreon, and this recorded session will be uploaded shortly after the live ends, usually within a couple of hours. But yeah, nothing is coming out of the news cycle in regards to Peguis. And that's no news is good news. But even I was just watching, I'm going to pop over to their Facebook page, because on, even on Facebook yesterday, they weren't really sharing a lot. I would expect by now, hopefully, that they do have a little bit more. No, they don't. So the last post for Peguis was April 26th, and it was some drone footage that wasn't really clear on what exactly they were doing the flyovers for. It was probably to show and catalog a lot of the, we can look here, it was probably to catalog a lot of the what was going on in the community, but no real information on what we're looking at. No indication of damage. I mean, it looks good. You can kind of see there on the berms where they've done some riprap. But yeah, nothing coming out of Peguis in the news cycle as part of their recovery. And I always like to encourage communities to, continue the communication, following these things, because you don't want to lose the attention that you're getting, especially if you still need continued funding support. You still want to strategically communicate after an event, even if it's not a big event, even if things worked out well and all your preparedness and mitigation strategies worked out and there's minimal damage. Continue to communicate that good news. Continue to tell the community what went well and what you're continuing to do. Because if people are still evacuated, they're going to want that. And it's always good too, from a communication standpoint, for a disaster recovery claim with Indigenous Services Canada through their Emergency Management Assistance Program. You want to keep telling that story to ensure that the government is picking up on where things are at, because the reimbursement of funds is not always a pleasant process. It can be a very long workflow, and Indigenous Services Canada does not put in the resources that are needed for them to reimburse communities quickly. And that's why I always encourage communities, keep up the communication, right? Even if things have worked out well, keep it up, keep it up. But if you are in Ontario and part of Quebec there, you can see where a lot of that flood activity is. The weather right now in those areas, it is a little bit warmer. It's we'll pull up the temperature. So we're kind of in that, below 10 degrees. And because of the saturation and the frozen ground, the water that's accumulating there is running off. It's not absorbing into the ground. So there's going to at least another couple of days with, those special weather statements in those regions. It is going to be quite wet. And even, as we progress through the week, here's the forecast through to Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon into Thursday. On the prairies, we're starting to get into those upper teens, maybe even hit 20 degrees in some places. So that's what's driving the current wildfire index right now. And I don't know why I did that. Let me get rid of that one. Go to back. I'm just going to adjust this so everyone can see the fire weather index. If we go to where we were yesterday, you can see it was in those blue zones in the prairies. Wasn't looking too bad. If you look over in Atlantic Canada, just over 24 hours, you can kind of see that the fire weather index has moved into that 6 to 15 kind of range. BC's improved a little bit, which is good news. Even if we look at the fire danger, BC has improved a bit. So that's good news, because they did see some big flare-ups of wildfire over the weekend. And I think as the wildfire outlook here, I've got some notes from BC. A cluster of wildfires are burning in BC, many of them on land that's already parched, marking the beginning of the season that has some officials planning for how to conserve water. Federal, provincial, territorial ministers responsible for emergency management met virtually yesterday, and they were discussing the shared priorities, preparations, and response in the midst of spring flooding across Canada in advance of the wildfire season. Now, this group of federal, provincial, territorial ministers meeting April 28th, I hadn't seen any news reports of them meeting before this, but this time of the year is a little bit too late for them to be meeting. They need to be meeting earlier. So I'd like to see, our government take this all a little bit more seriously, because they're meeting after the flood, right? They're coming in a little bit late. April for that group is you've got to be coming together around at minimum mid to late March. So, it's good that we're seeing a little bit of things subdue in BC, probably because they did see a little bit cooler temperatures. But by Thursday, I would expect that BC might creep up, because even on Friday, look at BC, even Alberta. We did see that little bit of shift today. It is looking a bit better, but that's just going to be a temporary. That's just going to be temporary as we get into the warmer months. But I think the places to watch, obviously, BC, like southern Quebec, Atlantic Canada, all really primed right now at a high fire danger. And the fire danger is rated as how easily a fire might ignite in forest vegetation and how readily that fire will spread through vegetation. So in those yellow and red areas, if something does ignite, it's going to spread quite quickly. If we even go into the fine fuel moisture, you can see here again what's driving the fire weather index, right? This is the part where it tracks moisture content of the very fine dead surface fuels. So you can see in Atlantic Canada, BC, the prairies, that fine fuel moisture code is, really high. I mean, and it's really, really dry. So that's what's driving that fire weather index and the fire dangers. When those things catch, that's why quadding, driving cars through fields, throwing cigarette butts outside, that's why those can start fires so quickly, and why they can move so quickly, because any of those really small, fine fuels are just primed and ready to burn. But I think what some of the experts are stating really around Quebec, Ontario, BC, Atlantic Canada, those are going to be the places to watch. Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, we'll see. There's more concern in Ontario, Quebec, Atlantic Canada right now, and BC. There's Alberta, and I think that's also too partly due to only looking at the fire danger. They're not taking into account the response capability of those provinces. And even if you look at a province like Saskatchewan and you can say, okay, the fire risk is high, but lower than many parts of Canada, their response capability, if it's not as sufficient as you see in other provinces, that's a whole other issue. So that's a thing we have to consider when we're looking at all of this is a province might be lower risk, but if they don't have the response capability to deal with that low risk, that actually increases their risk. And that's the same at the community level as well. A community may be at low risk of a wildfire evacuation, but if they don't have the in-community capability to deal with it, if it does happen, that means their risk is actually higher. And that's the data that these maps don't capture. Again, right, we have to keep in mind that these are just basically looking at the environment. This is not looking at community response, community resilience, things like that. You want to see Newfoundland? Yeah, there is, maybe I got to move it on the phone. It's a little bit hidden off there, but I'll bring it right up. Nova Scotia, Newfoundland is pretty good right now. There's nothing in terms of ranking. I'm pretty sure, like if we go back last year, I just want to double check, because sometimes the data, yeah, they do get data there. So that was last year. I just wanted to make sure that Newfoundland gets picked up with data. But yeah, as of today, Newfoundland's the risk is the fire weather index and the fire danger is below low. So it's good right now. Thank you for joining Java. Thank you. I'll have some Java. That's a good reminder. Thanks for joining our Superfan Club. Really appreciate it. If you are in emergency management, let me know, because we can send you a link to our community emergency management app if you're in the field. And we're getting ready to launch that app to all Indigenous communities. I might be pushing out the link today. I've just been doing a little bit more testing and just want to make sure that a couple things are solid. Hello. If you want to access our emergency management tools for Indigenous communities, send me a DM because you'll get access to the fire assessment, organizational resilience assessment, EM program assessment, disaster recovery, and the EMAP grant writer. And the EMAP grant writer seems to be the most popular feature right now because it basically, when you fill out a community hazard, risk, and vulnerability assessment, we've now got it where it cross-populates into your emergency management program assessment, your on-reserve fire services assessment, your organizational resilience assessment. You only have to enter in the data once, and it populates a EMAP grant rater or grant proposal. So if you want access to that, let me know. I'm going to be launching the tool here really quickly in this month. Yep, there is some AI in it. You don't necessarily need to use the AI, but there is an AI analyzer in it that is tuned specifically to EMAP, the Canadian Emergency Management Framework. All of the, we're following OCAP and CARE for First Nations Indigenous data governance, and the site is hosted and built in Canada. The AI processing, there is some AI processing in the States, but it's through a Canadian company called Cohere. So the data is not stored in the US. It kind of flips over there to be processed, but it's not saved and it comes back. And I'm trying to decide if that's sufficient enough. I want to be able to say that even the data is processed in Canada, but then I got to go over to an OpenAI or an Amazon. And right now I would prefer to stay with a Canadian company, even though the processing is in the US. So I think, like, from users and from this community here on TikTok, that's the kind of feedback I'm looking for. So it all kind of depends on, everyone's level of comfortability in meeting those governance pieces, especially around OCAP and things like that. So I fairly confident. I was talking to an Indigenous person yesterday who does emergency management, and as soon as I showed him the app, he wanted to subscribe to it for 10 of his clients. So I think this is going to be a game changer for Indigenous EM. Thanks for all the likes, everybody. Appreciate that. And that, support through that app, like, you can write an EMAP grant through the app for like a fraction of what it would cost to hire a full-time grant writer or do it yourself or hire a contractor. And even if you are capable of writing an EMAP grant, yeah, I can send you the link for sure. I'll just I just want to write your name down, Ali DS. Okay. I'll make sure that I get that link to you. Because even if you are capable, I'm capable of writing an EMAP grant, but do I really want to go through my community risk assessment, my fire services assessment, my EMAP program plan, my EMAP program, everything, and like go through Word and Excel or however you track all of that? Do I really want to go through all of that and have to pull it all into a grant? Not really. And the other thing I'll just say about the app too is when you go in and you update it real time, it cross-populates across everything in real time. Even your grant proposals stay updated. Yeah, no, Indigenous populations, yes, fire season is brutal every year now. This year is going to be even more brutal. It's shaping up that this could be one of the warmer summers. Actually, 2026 to 2030. These next 4 years are not only going to be the warmest, but one of them is scheduled to be the hottest. Yes, please DM your email. That would be helpful. Thank you. So we're going to be looking at wildfire season, horrible for the next 4 years. And this is the thing, right? When we're looking at Indigenous safety, really, like, what are the top four, you know, essential, critical pieces of infrastructure, right? Because I know we spend a lot of time talking about infrastructure, and usually that can mean roads, that can mean bridges, that can mean, our community halls, like whatever. But really, the four things: oxygen, water, calories, and shelter. All right. I like to look at climate change under our ability to have oxygen, water, calories, and shelter. And guess what? Shelter for Indigenous people, especially on reserve, has never been great. I mean, sure, you've got some homes and stuff, but there's no funding for them. They're not in good shape. Housing for Indigenous communities is not great. Water has never been great for First Nations. So many are on boil water advisories all the time, right? Still, there are still a lot of boil water advisories. Yes, they cannot get insurance, exactly, and that's the other reason we've started up the First Nations housing repair and home inventory app, where you can go and catalog all your personal belongings for EMAP or for insurance if you are lucky enough to have it. So that is available right now. We're just making some updates to it, but you can log on to that now and check it out at myhome.hazardscape.com. And this allows people to catalog everything in their house. So when they do have to submit for financial assistance, it's available. But already we're seeing water issues now with oxygen, right? Every summer, it's getting harder to deal with wildfire smoke. And, calories. Food in remote communities is already expensive. It's already not great. So when we look at the four essentials of oxygen, water, calories, and shelter, we're not advancing, right? Maybe some nations have got off boil water advisories, but guess what? Now their air is under threat, right? In the summertime, it's getting harder to deal with fire smoke. Thanks for all the likes, everyone, and your support. Appreciate it. So even when we kind of make some positive movements forward, we're seeing a reduction in other areas. And, I can't express enough, especially for the housing piece right now, because housing has always been a big issue. And I know a lot of people say to me, but Brad, I submit a home repair application to my nation, and the housing manager either forgets it, either prioritizes other people because of CNC, or loses it, or whatever, or the government doesn't fund enough money. Yes, those things are all absolutely true, but in order to deal with that problem, we got to see things for what they are, right? And not what we want them to be or are afraid they might be. And we have to give meaning to that hardship, right? If we don't give meaning to the housing crisis, it's only going to continue and it's not going to change. Having your own home repair project management tool and reporting and accountability tool to hold your nations to account, that is giving more meaning to this, right? It's giving more meaning to the problem because now you're submitting formal reports and data that you didn't have access to before. And I just want to make sure, like, I can show you the dashboard here. Like, this is what you're going to see in your dashboard for your home. So if you're submitting housing repairs over and over and over again, you can now start to track like what you submitted, when you submitted it, how many reports, how many requests. You're going to have a PDF report that looks like this, right? That you can continue to send. And if you want in the app and your nation wants to set up a better system, all users can download their data off the site because they own it and submit it to the nation in Excel or whatever system they have. And that's going to be really important because right now I think when housing information comes into the band, depending on the sophistication of it, it comes through an email. Maybe they use paper forms, an online form. Maybe it is a Word document, a text message, who knows? It's coming in like 3 or 4 different data sets, but the nation only has one way to deal with that data. There's no consistency. This tool now gives you that consistency. So if a whole nation wanted to inventory their housing damage in one way, that's what this does. So thanks for all the likes and support. I appreciate everyone. This is what keeps us going. And also, you know, through that housing inventory, we're trying to create a tool for Indigenous peoples to use that they get benefit out of, that they can own. There's a feature in it where you can give us feedback. And I think the cost of it is relatively low. Like we're only charging, if you want to do a one-time report, it's $19. If you want an annual, if you want to access it annually all the time, every year, unlimited, it's $59 for the year. And we are donating $1,000 to a First Nations Child and Family charity after our first 100 signups on an annual plan. And I think that $59 annually is also going to support us continuing to do these daily briefs, posting our free training for emergency management coordinators, keeping the cost of everything low. We're not, I'm not a tech bro. I'm not looking to be like the next, tech bro overlord. We just want to make tools that help people deal with disasters and emergencies. And that's why with our My Home app, it's like $5 a month. And if you evacuate and you need to know what's in your house because your house was a total loss, you have that data on your phone in your pocket everywhere you go. And if you need to submit a claim to the government for financial assistance or to your band, it's there. So really accessible, really easy. We are designing it specifically for First Nations conditions, meaning we know that housing is overcrowded. We know there may be multiple families in one house. We know that a 4-bedroom house might actually have 6 bedrooms. We're designing it around that. We're designing it around the family unit. We're not designing a tool that can be used in municipal or First Nations or more municipal. This is targeted specifically to First Nations, Inuit, Métis. So you're going to see things in our app, like on the HazardScape one for community. If I go back to it, which I'm not in it, we just put this in yesterday. So when you go into your community profile, yes, it does ask for province territory, but also asks for your treaty, your region, your language. Like when you type in, if we use Enoch here as an example, it's pulling up your community with your associated tribal council. Okay. And then you can put in, if you've got a self-government agreement, you can put in your province, your language, your reserve land, and your treaty. So this is not just capturing like address, postal code, box number. We want to focus in on what makes a community profile relevant for an Indigenous community, right? And it's not, do you speak English or French? You can add in Cree, Dene, like whatever you speak, it goes in there. That becomes part of your community profile. And all of that goes into your community hazard or community risk vulnerability assessment. It pulls information from your community into that. So you could even design an exercise based off your risk assessment, your EM program, everything, right? We're going to add in a exercise development tool in here that creates an exercise scenario so specific to your community that a normal chat GPT, or if you're using Claude, it won't get to that level unless you feed it all your data, which then they all own and have access to. This one does not go that route. You own it, you keep it. It's hosted in Canada. You get what's called an API key, meaning without that key that you generate, it's like a very long password, If I wanted to access data on your account through the database, I would need that key. If you share that key with me, great. Munyao can go in and look at what you've got. But if I don't have that key as the backend admin, I can't get your data. So we've encrypted it. It's very safe. Homeowners don't have to worry about the data being used for anything to judge them around social conditions. It doesn't go to the government. It doesn't even go to your band. It goes directly to you, and it can only be shared by you if you give somebody the key to your safe. So that's kind of where we're headed with all of this. But we are here every morning at 8:30 a.m. Mountain Standard Time to do our daily situation briefs. They are recorded and posted on our YouTube. We will also on our Patreon share our briefing note, which is our daily emergency situation report, mainly targeted to First Nations, but we are tracking some of the bigger issues in Canada around provinces and territories at a high level, just in case. So that's why it's important for First Nations, right? Crisis communications. Have a really good crisis communications plan, because even after an event, you want to communicate. Even the good news, right? We need all of that. So yeah, thank you for all the likes. Thanks Java and Kava for joining up as super fans. I'll message you the links to all of our tools. Right now, we're doing some beta testing, so any feedback you can provide, please do, because if you are engaging with us and providing feedback, there's going to be perks, right? And we'll figure. Right now, it's kind of mostly free access is what I can give, but as we start to ramp up and get financial support, thank you for sharing it. We don't take government grants or get government funding for this. This is community funded. So the more engagement we get from people, the more perks you get, the more access you get at a lower cost. And then we can start doing other things like, if you want to co-develop the app and develop something specific for your community, I think we can get to a level where we can, on your instance, on your profile, we can add in those specific things. And you'll have the opportunity to inform us and give us that feedback. So this is a community development project app. Everything that's been developed in it so far is based off of the feedback I'm getting from TikTok Live, from people that are just texting me and emailing me, like however we get the updates. And with the emergency management piece too, because I've gotten some questions about, how specific is it for Indigenous? You'll notice on the emergency management assessment, if I zoom in here a little bit, we follow some common EM standards, but through this work, we've got some Indigenous considerations, and you'll see those highlighted with the yellow and the star. So as people are using this in their community, they're saying, well, can we add, like Indigenous language, cultural communication, program documentation, public comms, and EM reflect Indigenous language and culture? You're not going to get that from the government tools. You're not going to get that from the, especially in Alberta, especially through the Public Safety Canada EM framework, you're not going to get these considerations. So this is 100% built for your culture, wherever we can fit it in. And as you go through this, you can give us and share specifics for other communities to use. Right? This is also going to become like a knowledge hub, where if people want to share certain stories or certain things they've done for their community, like the big one we got was the moose hunting one for evacuees, that can be considered in here and shared across communities. So I think what we'll do is have a similar to like our resource library, maybe have like a good practices library where users can submit their stories that they want to share with other Indigenous emergency managers. And then you can have access to that hub, and it'll be organized, cataloged, and things like that. And we just create that network. So yeah, and if you're interested in the training piece, as you go through the resilience journey in the app, which is a step-by-step follow-along plan for how to develop an EM program, you will get, well, if you sign in now, you get your founder's badge, but you'll also earn like these learning badges. So as you progress through this and do good work and get results, you will eventually earn up to a community resilience leader, which is something that we've designed that you can use on your resume. Like you'll be able to put on your resume because you can demonstrate the work you've done, the things that you've done. You can show the results. You can show you did it in a methodology and a structure that other communities are doing too. And this will, like if a region of communities was using this tool and everyone was using it, you could then put all that data together yourselves and come up with a decentralized system, meaning you've got your own community system, but then at certain areas within each of your own, you link up at these parts, and we can build that in here with it. And even if you wanted to do like a regional grant together, here's the EMAP grant writer, right? You can pull in all that data across everything and come up with a budget financial plan, and in the click of one button you get a grant. And I've been asked to add other grants in here, like if it's through CERNAC, if it's related to NRCan, if it's another grant entity other than EMAP, let me know. We can add in a specific grant writer for that grant, and that gets people off. Yeah, I hope so. I hope it's groundbreaking, and I hope they recognize that it is. Because I know so many grant writers right now, they're like, oh, I'm just writing my grant through ChatGPT. And I'm like, yeah, okay, but it doesn't have a profile of you at this depth. And if it does, and you've had to enter in all of your community's profile into ChatGPT or Claude, then you've just trained all of those AIs on your community, and now the world has access to that data. Even if you turn off the training data, like option, so it doesn't put it out there and get trained, you're still not able to go to OpenAI or ChatGPT or Claude and say, hey, give me what's called a JSON file to my data. They're just not going to, I mean, maybe you could do it, but it would take a very, very long time. Whereas we've made it in your profile right there. You hit that generate API key, export all data. You now have it in that form for you. It's yours. You own it. You click delete on this account. It's wiped off. Because I don't really care about, I mean, I care about your data safety, but I don't care about having it. I don't need to know any of the things in your community. I don't live and work in your community. I don't need to know it. I just need to know that you've got a tool that's helpful for you and that's useful for you. But same with the home inventory one. Like, I don't care if you have 3 couches in your house. That's not going to serve me any purpose. And that's the difference, because we don't have like a tech bro, we want to take over the world, and the more data we have and knowledge we have about people is going to make us control you more. Yeah, that's not that's not what we're doing. So personal guarantee on all of that. So yeah, as we head into this week, we'll be here. If you're just tuning in, this is all recording. Thanks for the feedback, Java. That's the feedback we need. Now we're at a point where, thanks for the follow. Now we're at a point where we have to get we have to get financial support for this. And if we get it through nation level, great. If we get it through individuals and we can give benefit to them, even better. Because this it's not a lot. Like, I've been quoted to develop some of these apps. I've been quoted just to sit down and gather the requirements and get the initial plan, 60,000, and then implement, the build, deploy, testing, implementation, another 100 to 120,000. So 180 grand to get to where we're at because we don't have any labor costs. It's not we're near that, and we've funded it ourselves to try and get it out to market or out to community. So the more support we can get, and just know too, if you are listening and thinking about these apps, how they look today is not how it's going to be. We have on the profile or the community dashboard, you can hit a little give feedback, and you can tell us ideas, general feedback, bugs. When we get an idea or feedback, feature request that is value add, then like I'll track that, and that's where you get your perks, right? Like if you give us an idea or a feature request and we actually get it to implementation, then you're going to get a perk of some sort. And who knows, it might even be like a financial one. If this app at a certain point is making enough money where someone gives us an idea and we can give them a small dividend from it month to month because it is making money, like I'm open to that. A lot of decentralized communities do that if you contribute a little bit of work, you can get paid for it. And if one time you don't want to contribute the work, then you don't get paid. But if you're feeling really into it and you do want to contribute more, then you can make more. And or we might do like giveaways. We might even host a little conference. Maybe we can pay for someone's travel. I don't know. That's always been the vision for us. So that's the big plan here. But yeah, and if you as always, this is recorded on our YouTube. You can catch all of our 8:30 a.m. Mountain Standard Time live streams right here. Here's our special weather warnings for today, mostly in Ontario, Quebec, where we're going to see continued precipitation and rain and, cool weather, right? Going to happen through until Thursday. So if you're in that Ontario region, you can kind of see that's across the country. That's where the big flood risk is. We are seeing a little bit more prop up here in Alberta in some of the basins. What are we showing here? Oh yeah, river forecast. So for example, you can see it's going to get up to a danger level just around North Wabasca Lake. I think that's, Wabasca. So, oh yeah, you're in Edmonton. Yeah, me too. It is nice and sunny. We are going to see, at least on the prairies, a little bit of, reprieve in the weather. Here's by Tuesday at 12 o'clock, we're going to get into the 10 mid-teens. And then by tomorrow, Thursday, we're going to see maybe high teens. So yeah, we're going to get to maybe spring for a little while. May long weekend is coming, so we can always expect snow and ice on May long weekend, right? But hopefully done with the snow. I agree. It's not great. Satellite imagery. So we should be able to see, you can see that system in Ontario there. That's where all that precipitation is still hanging around as of right now. In that next hour, it's not going to change much. So yeah, keep an eye out on Ontario. But if you have any questions or anything, let me know. I will. So you can even, I like this windy.com because you can even track the lightning strikes. Yeah, Ontario is pouring rain. So you can see all those lightning strikes in the US. So you can really get in to see where they are. And when you overlay, that's Louisville, you can see where all the lightning is hitting in Louisville. You can always go back if it's in Canada. You can always go back to the which one is it? This one here, right? And you can check those fine fuel moisture codes. And if you're getting lightning and you're in a high, you'll know that lightning's gonna spark up. The program. So I've got I'll rattle them off quick, but once you get into our app, they're all listed in our resource inventory. But we use the drought monitor from Canada, so the Canadian Drought Monitor. We use the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Center map which is really the same as this one here. This is the Canadian Wildland Fire Information System right there for that. This is ArcGIS Online. So this is our own map that we've made with different layers. It pulls up like all the Indigenous communities you can see in the red, purple, yellow, and then the special weather statements. And we can pull up very different things. Hey Valerie, thanks for coming back, and thanks for the super fan recognition. Really appreciate that. I don't know if you got a link to our app yet or not, but if you didn't, I'll still send you one. This one's good for the prairies. This is the prairiewx.ca. I think was it Valerie that gave me this one? Somebody did. Just the last week. It's a really good one. Prairie WX, which is it's like a kind of a monitoring system. And then we use windy.com, and we use Google Flood Hub. So you can get all those tools on our resource page in our app when I send you the link. We're kind of always updating it. They've also got firesmoke.ca, IQ Air for air quality, Environment Canada weather. The Prairie WX is on there now. Oh yeah, that's windy.com. Just windy.com. And you can go over here. There's a whole list of layers you can add. So it's pretty user friendly. You can get into all that. You can check different layers. There's actually a lot more than that. I like using the city heat maps in the summertime. So you can actually see which cities are producing the most heat in the season. So it's a little slow maybe because I'm online, but it'll crop up and show you what cities are producing heat based on the amount of concrete. You can look up solar. Like, where's a good place to put your solar panel today? Yeah, there's so much clear air turbulence. You want to go fly a kite? Like, it's just crazy. Fire danger, you can pull from here. These should pull from like the Canadian Wildfire Information System. Like, that's why, but I prefer sometimes for some data to go to the Canada site and look at it there. Yeah, if you saw a kite, it would take you away for sure. Right? This gives you a little bit of a different view. Like, you can see that swath up in BC, Alberta. It doesn't exist on here. So what this is saying here is this is the fire spread or the fuel moisture. I don't think this is pulling from droughtimpact.eu. So this is pulling from a European data set, not a Canadian data set. So you want to just double check. In Winnipeg, let's look. Yep. You're in the 35s, getting into 35 right now. Tuesday, let's see, what time is it now? Tuesday. Yeah, there's a good north wind coming through. It's gonna cool off again by tonight, but tomorrow you'll be around 2 degrees, 4 degrees, 5 degrees. Not getting warm in Winnipeg, is it? Not going to be as warm. What's Edmonton? Like, Edmonton will be at 13 by Friday, 5 today, but sunny. So cold and strong. Yeah. It's cool too to watch kind of like the wind patterns. You can kind of see what's driving that weather into us, right? And the Prairie WX map is pretty loaded if you want to see like a spaghetti plate. Roll school is supposed to get cooler during the week. Roll school? I don't know what roll school is. But yeah, you can kind of move in there. There's the wind at the airport. No wind at that station. Yeah, this one's just like, it's crazy. I like this one, but it's very, very technical. Oh, okay, you voice text. Okay, that explains it. Thank you. Always it's either fat fingers for me or I can't speak properly into the microphone. So yeah, all these are available here and with some extras. So I'll send that link out to everybody. So the link you sent me, I can follow up when we do our camping trip roadway. Yes, absolutely. Yep, you can use it for sure. It's always good to, I like these too because it gives you a visual right? So if we go look at tomorrow at 11 a.m., this is the forecast. So you can see, the wind direction. You can see how it's going to change. You can see where it's going to be cooler, warmer, those little pockets, right? It's a good visual. It works really good on your phone. You usually have pretty good service. Like if you don't have a lot of cell service, it still comes in pretty good, low bandwidth. But yeah, very happy or very good for your situational awareness wherever you are. So yeah. All right. If there's no other major questions or curiosities, Stacy's on. Good afternoon. Good morning, Stacy. I don't know. Are you available to come on here, or are you kind of in between something? You're just coming in to say hello. You want me to invite you? I'm sorry, I asked you two questions. You answered both. But one was, should you come on, and one is, are you busy? Stacy is our director of training, accreditation, and standards. He can do a lot of commentary on some very specific First Nations emergency management and fire. Let me in. Let me try this and see. Okay, I'm gonna do multi-guest. You can come on as a guest. Then you should be able to, yeah, that one. There. Finally it's working. He was born, had a board of directors on the Bear Clan.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Mr. Stacy Dorr.
Hello?
Oh, they're in Peg on the Bear Clan. He started it. Okay, I got you on, Stacy, but I can't hear you. I think you're on.
Test, 1, 2, 3.
Oh, there you are. I can hear you now.
Okay, perfect.
Welcome. Okay, so you're watching all the activity across the country from like a First Nations emergency management or firefighting perspective. What's your take on things right now and where we're headed?
Well, we got a lot of moisture, and I know that's a good thing. It kind of slows some of the fires down, but we are in for a longer fire season because of the amount of snow, late snow.
Yeah. So for you, like, because you're in Siksika Nation, so you're kind of like primarily grass fire hazard and stuff like that. Like, we talk a lot about wildland fires, but what's the grass fire situation looking like?
Grass fire season is going to be just as bad as the wildfires up in the forestry area. What people and even the forestry Canada don't understand is that some of these fires that get going, like they are just as bad. They cause just as much damage, and especially with the wind down here.
Yeah. It's windy. So because we're talking a lot about preparedness too. So back when you were the DEM for your nation and doing field officer stuff, like right now, what should communities need to be doing to be ready for what's going to like kind of tip over to be a really bad wildfire season?
Well, the first thing they got to do is they got to take care of their homes. So it's gathering up all of the combustible material like wood. Some people have wood near their house, propane tanks, gas cans, even vehicles. They got to be at least 50 feet away from the home. And also too is cut back a lot of the greenery that you have. So cut your grass, trees if you got them close. Cut up the branches to at least 6 feet above the ground. And if you have the capability, start watering your grass now to kind of green it up so it'll slow it down.
Yeah. So that's at the individual homeowner level. Getting into kind of like the emergency management coordinator position or director of EM position for First Nations, what do they need to be doing kind of as they come into work every day? What should be their kind of daily routine with some of their big high level activities that should be going on for the next few weeks?
Well, they should be tracking the weather, so specifically housing, public works, and give messaging out to the community and with like your tribal manager and starts, if the weather is getting really hot and it's fire, it's got good high fire behavior, you start having briefings with the different departments to kind of just prepare themselves. If they have any water trucks, if they have any homes that are, or even structures that may be in the line of fire, is start to look at what their plans are and how they're going to help with the first responders.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of why we're doing this situational briefing every morning is to give people that kind of routine and outline what would be like for you for a briefing. Like what would you include in a briefing to leadership and to staff and planning team or whoever that you're kind of starting to engage with at this point of the year?
If I was, I would do like a daily risk assessment, like a little memo to just the different managers and supervisors, and within that briefing will be if it's high winds, which direction is the wind coming from, if there's any potential hazards, if there's local fires that are happening, and just discuss a communication line. So who's calling who, if we activate, where are we going? But the biggest thing is just the weather and just the precautions, especially down south, because the wind can pick up and at least be 50 kilometers an hour, gusting at maybe 70. So, and also too is what I've noticed here is the time that grass fires start or even potential fires is when everyone goes home. So it's the kids that start the fires. It's could be quads. People are going to be barbecuing now and having fires and that. Is just be conscious of it and just give messaging out and how they can be safe and still do that stuff.
Yeah, and Valerie says in the chat there, so they need a coordinator in place where they can take all their stats to one person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as a coordinator, is having a seasonal briefing with everybody. So if it's grass fire or wildfire season, you start briefing them on potential hazards, update where the fires are, and you start building awareness. And then what you do is you track the stats, and those are your reasoning for one, for funding, two, for more support within the council, within the upper management.
Yeah. No, yes, Valerie, this app is specially built for on reserve in community coordinators. And actually while Stacy was talking there, like it wouldn't be too difficult to add a feature in the app that allows a person to kind of, grab a template for that risk, daily risk assessment or situational briefing. So at least they have some structure in the briefing as to what data and information they should collect and put in there and send to their leadership. Because I think with communication, right, it's important that leadership gets information the same time every day, following the same structure, so they can also get into that routine. Which, yeah, you cut out there for a sec, but you're back on.
Yeah, the biggest thing right now, and it's the hardest challenge for First Nations or any community, is convincing them that we're in hazard season. Whether it affects their community or not, it's still build that awareness and build that preparation, because I always quote what they say with Canada is that $1 of preparedness saves $7 in the actual emergency.
Yeah, look at Peguis. Like they had a goal of 1 million sandbags. I don't know if they hit that, but they definitely put a ton of effort into sandbagging and preparedness, you know, and it saved a lot of damage, I think. I don't know, the official reports on damage haven't been out yet, but it sounds like from some of the info out there that the number of homes that could have flooded did not flood. And that's a great example of, whatever the cost that is. Let's say they spend $1 million, it would have saved them tens of millions in damage. Fish River and Peg was helping, yeah. And it was just the membership. That's
I
the
mean,
way.
if you look at, like, we had a big grass fire here
Yep. Go ahead.
back in 2017. So just that grass fire cost the nation $7 million. We lost 4 homes. So if you calculate all of so $7 million, if we would have invested $1 million in preparedness, no homes would have been lost. And if you think about when that does happen, you lose 4 homes. There's families in there. You gotta put them up in hotels. You gotta feed them. You gotta build a home. So here,
you're looking at least a good $700,000 per home to build. So rebuild it, infrastructure, everything, right? And then getting the people back in, like they lost everything. So now you got to start them fresh, right? I mean,
Yep. Well, and
so
that's
so if you look at
go ahead. No, go ahead. Keep going.
so if you so back to what she said about the stats and about and giving awareness to council and to upper management is to look at that to say, okay, if we lose a home, how much is that going to cost us? If we have to do that, so it's taking that money and investing it, and it doesn't take much. Like if people can't cut their grass or anything, then you've got public works, you've got housing, you've got different departments that can come together.
You know what we could do? I don't know. Tell me if this. It's kind of as you're talking, it's like I keep thinking about tools we can put in the app. You could put in like a mitigation and preparedness calculator estimate that kind of like gives some financial scenarios. So, for example, if a community with 500 homes, you know, inputs $500,000 mitigation project for fire breaks and fire smarting and some training and stuff like that. And you run through it a scenario like a wildfire coming in from the west, this size. And if none of that mitigation was in place and you say 400 homes were burned down and this is the cost of the home and labor and the overtime and everything you need, you could probably come up with a bit of an estimator that says, do this mitigation, it will save you this in response and recovery. I'd probably put that in there. That would be kind of cool. Sorry. I'm just spitballing
Yes,
here.
absolutely. And the good thing is when you have a coordinator that can get the stats, do the risk assessments, do this calculation, if I've had experience that you put together in a report and that will go towards your funding application. And now you've got the stats and the justification of whatever monies that you need.
Yeah, like some sort of mitigation calculator, because like I was saying to I was showing someone this app yesterday and I told them, like, if I would have had this when I started my emergency management career 20 years ago, like I would have accelerated my ability to create EM plans and do risk assessments. I would have learned so much faster because like when you think about EM, you're not always, you're just kind of thinking about the plan, but you're not always thinking about the management of it and the implementation. And we know we have to have exercises and do after action reports and training, but it's all kind of like out there in the open. You're kind of doing things in order, out of order, this and that. Like it always felt really fragmented. But the more I'm kind of building out this app, I'm like having this structure. If I would have had it as a new EM, I think I would have learned about emergency management way faster than I did, even faster than going to like post-secondary, just for me. Stacy,
And you know what? You're exactly right. Even if you had a template,
yeah,
where you get activated, something happens, you have a quick checklist. Okay, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to get this out. What it does is it focuses you on the priorities and the strategies, and then you go from there, right? Because in the very beginning, if you're a new coordinator or you're new to this emergencies, your brain goes all over the place. It starts thinking of 15 things at once that you got to take care of. And out of that 15, there might be only 3 priorities that you need to do right now.
yeah, and then you lose those priorities because you, from leadership or from even an event or from government or whatever, you're getting priorities pushed down on you all the time, and it's not hard to lose sight of the priorities you had 3 months ago because you've just been pepper sprayed with so much other stuff to do. Attacked by a res dog. Attack. What's better on this call than Stacy? Is that your dog or another dog? He's dealing with he's probably outside of his house and he's got his dog, and who knows.
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry about that.
Was that your dog or a res dog? Another res dog?
No, or they're my res dogs. They see birds and whatever, then they get going. So
Oh my gosh, that's funny. What goes in the emergency management preparedness plan for dealing with res dogs?
Oh, you know what? Believe it or not, I had to develop one when I was here. It's when I was the director here and in public safety, I had to work with the animal services here. And the biggest thing is that dealing with all the res dogs and the aggressive ones. So what we did is we did a huge campaign of spay and neuter your dog. So we come pick them up, and just because of that, we reduced our dogs to a level where we ended up weeding out all the ones that were aggressive, and now we just got there's better safety in the community now.
Yeah. Have you been following that announcement earlier in the month through ISK about the 783 million or 738 million dollars to EMAP and the amalgamation of health emergency management in with emergency management?
Yeah, I have. And even with that, there's a lot of health services within the communities that are reaching out for health services, emergency management coordinators, or people to help them now, right?
Yeah. What
The only thing is with a lot of the communities, the health services is its independent entity. So I don't know how much of that money will go out to the communities. Like they will develop programs. Don't get me wrong, health and safety and evacuations, and that. But the core things that money should be going to should be in preparedness with everybody, right? So how do you coordinate with all the other departments?
Yeah, and Valerie's saying so your band is custom. So whatever chief and council put in our bylaws are to do something with the res. Yeah, so like when you say your band is custom, are you meaning like it's up to chief and council to make those decisions in terms of identifying the issues and creating solutions for them?
Yeah, I think what she's talking about is like a band council resolution.
Yeah.
So what another thing that coordinators got a challenge they have is they have to develop bylaws for council to review and get passed because so let's say the RCMP need to come in and enforce people that are doing fireworks or having a fire. If you have no work with the RCMP, if they don't have a bylaw, they've got no teeth. All they're going to do is wait till the RCMP leave and then they're just going to do it again. But if there's a bylaw, then they have a little bit more, or even your security or just your local departments have the authority with that bylaw.
Yeah, she's saying band custom is chief and council and yeah, well of course they have RCMP on every reserve, yeah. Okay. So yeah, they're not working with feds on their own decisions. Usually band custom is from chief and council.
Yeah.
Okay.
And all you got to do is, it's going to be hard, but it's if you develop a bylaw for them, lay out everything out, the importance of it, it's a lot easier. If you go to council and say that they have to do it and it's important, they'll tell you, yeah, no, we know.
Yeah,
But they don't have the expertise. They don't know where to start with the bylaw. So if you start that way.
Do you think, for chief and councils that are maybe either hesitant or it's not even hesitation, it's just lack of understanding or education around emergency management and the risks and all of that, will those kind of, seasonal daily or weekly briefings, like, can coordinators use that as an opportunity to create some literacy and teach?
Yes, absolutely. What I recommend and what I've done in my experience is every new council, I put together a binder for every single one of them of what our risks are currently, what we've dealt with, stats, what emergency management does in terms of preparation, what the coordinator does, and then educate them. And you're exactly right. It's not they understand the risk of fire and there's flooding in the community. It's just they don't know because they're a political entity. How do they push it forward? How do they, if they don't know emergency management, they don't know how to explain it, and they don't know how to plan for it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. What is your take on kind of, again, like just yesterday the federal ministers at, like, for provinces and territories only met the federal ministers responsible for emergency management just met yesterday to talk about, the flood and wildfire season. And there hasn't been a lot of news come out about what all went through with that meeting. But what is your take on them meeting at this point in time? Because I would have thought that they needed to meet earlier in the year, but they seem to be meeting now.
I think the biggest discussions that they're going to be having is how much are we going to be spending now, and preparing themselves and what a potential budget looks like. But in terms of support, it's up in the air how they're going to be preparing, because I know they have these stats, but I'm going to go back to what I said about the political entity. They're so high up. They're looking at percentages. They're looking at numbers. They're looking at a risk. Like, yeah, sure, our community needs money and it needs preparedness, but it's like, okay, if we look at their stats, they're at 15% to get any kind of wildfires, flooding, and that. So that affects everything right there. Is how do they calculate a risk between each community when they should be equally saying, okay, we need a coordinator, we need to equally fund them every year, and that will help them just to get started with preparedness.
Yeah, and I think Valerie here is asking, with the binder, like even though you give out the binder, were you still going out into communities and informing community about emergency management?
Oh, absolutely. Before, I did council when they first started, but I hit the ground running, and I did a community meeting because we got 12 different communities. So I structured it that we meet at different areas, put out a lot of information to the communities. I visited the schools, because that had more power. When you have 2,000 people saying the same thing, the council saying, look, we need help, we need to prepare ourselves, it goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and she's also saying here in Peguis, they tried to meet with the feds 3 weeks before the flooding. The chief from Peguis said, "We know what's coming. We want to be prepared." And it sounds like they didn't get much response, so they just took action into their own hands. And a lot of communities members helped, right? And that's the system in Canada. That's the system we have. It's that graduated level. It's the homeowners, the individuals, or the first responders. The army didn't go in until last Saturday.
Yeah.
What's your take on all these nations asking for military support right off the hop?
The thing of it is, if you look at the history behind a lot of the First Nations, for the army or military itself to come into a First Nations, even though they're a federal entity, they have a specific structure and they're limited to what they can do. So their manpower. So if you want to do sandbagging, if you want to do hydro dams, stuff like that, that's what they're good for, because there's a lot of them. In terms of actual support for the community, they can't offer anything except structure. But then again, they will just have a liaise, because you won't be able to control the army. You'll be able to control specific tasks with them.
Yeah, and that's what they asked for, extra help with the sandbagging. What do you think, like just in general, what can communities do other than, kind of, because I get worried about communities maybe saying, you know what, let's only prepare up to this point, but we'll make sure to call the military in or ask for military support, so we're not going to kind of prepare the full 100%. Like, do you think they're relying too much on the military coming in? Is that a good strategy for them, or do they need to like look at other things?
They need to look at other stakeholders, and specifically, if you have companies in your community that have heavy equipment, and they have people that can just bring the equipment, and then your community members are loader operators, and that specific equipment can do just as much sandbagging and help them building berms, everything just as fast as the army being delivered, right? That's the biggest thing, is working with the stakeholders.
Yeah, exactly. And I get concerned that, as Canada increases its defense, like I know they're actively recruiting for more military, but it's all within like a defense kind of area, like the the military is going to go where it's the highest risk if they're getting called to several places. And that highest risk may not necessarily be a First Nation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Like it's a tough decision when you don't have those resources.
And see, we have to look at one thing too that kind of gets some communities gets overwhelmed is we look at Pegasus, right? They got all these people coming in. They got Rubicon, they got the army. You need so you don't get overwhelmed to the point where they just take over because there's no direction. Is you need to have a good incident management team that's managing them and tracking them and giving briefings to the community and saying, okay, this is what we recommend, and then coordinating with each other.
What go over kind of talk about incident management teams a little bit for First Nations. Oops, I had some feedback there. But what does an incident management team look like on reserve?
An incident management team, what they do is
Jeez.
they bring together a group of individuals that are trained in incident command systems or just great organizers and then support. So you need someone, let's say from Public Works. They have obviously they do roads, they do infrastructure. So train them to be operations specific where they track all resources of heavy equipment, laborers, and they take care of the operation. So they start looking at, okay, we need a burn, we need sandbagging. They're in charge of it. You have another group that plans. So you bring in a team that can start planning things. So planning where are the teams that are coming in, where are they staying, tracking how many people are within the community. And that's a base of what the incident management team does is they track all the resources. They have direct communication with everybody, and they're also giving communications to not only the community, but to chief and council and upper management.
Yeah, and Valerie's saying like even Peguas has their own construction. They used what equipment they had. They were using their own equipment for sandbagging, moving sandbags. Both Peguas and Fish River are big nations. They both have construction companies that assisted, and that's the thing, right? If your nation has a construction company or some sort of corporate development arm like that, they have to be at the planning table, right? For exactly that reason, because they should be the ones doing the work. Because it's also it's not a it's not a great time to earn revenue, but that money that would normally go outside to outside contractors can stay within the nation economic development system.
Yeah, absolutely. And back to the incident management team, that's another portion of it is all of Saskatchewan, go to all the nations and you come together and you meet with all the coordinators and you say, okay, there's 25 reserves. If they can commit 10 people on each reserve to be trained in ICS up to 400 specific trained in plans and operations, now all of Saskatchewan has an incident management team so that if any community needs help, all the other reserves that are trained in that consists of the IMT team. Also, too, the IMT team consists of how many resources can you reach out to different communities and say, like I know they have construction companies, but maybe they need a couple more construction companies. Other nations might be able to send some equipment up, give them.
Yeah, and of course, yeah, Valerie too makes the point that yes, it's when it's nation members who are doing, the construction, they're on the construction teams, they own it. Yeah, they're saving their own community, right? They're there to make sure that things go the right way because it's their home. So there's the
And
financial
you know what?
aspect, but that pride too.
The nation members that are the head of every group. So let's say you've got three different stakeholder companies that come in, one or two nation members that are guiding them because they know the reserve. They know where everything is flooding. So the company that comes in will have a strategy to say, okay, we're going to start here. And the nation's like, no, it's not, it doesn't flood there for another few more days. We have to focus here because they know the nation. if there's back roads, they're like, "Oh, we can't have access." Well, yeah, they'll tell you, "Well, no, there's a back road here. We can get to it." Our own people know our land like the back of their hand. They're the ones that should be telling them, "You need to go here. You need to go here," because they know where it floods. They know if there's a winter storm, who is at risk more. If there's a wildfire, all of that. They've already got it in their head what needs to be done.
Yeah, and I think Whiskey 56 says those are called hereditary chiefs. So is that the heads that Stacy is referring to? They're also hereditary chiefs. Maybe in some communities, I don't know.
Yeah, well, we have something similar. It's called the Blackfoot Confederacy.
Yeah.
So each nation has its own chief and council. But the Confederacy is all the chiefs come together and they start talking about economic development, how they can help each other, or a bunch of stuff, right? And the Blackfoot Confederacy has the ability to help write proposals that can help all the nations either at the same time or maybe too specific that need some kind of development or emergency preparedness.
Yeah, it's going to depend on the community and right and their culture. It's not going to be the same necessarily all across the board. But I'm not sure if Whiskey 56 is clear on the entire conversation because they're just coming on. But yeah, I don't know any other kind of considerations for this wildfire season. What communities need to be doing or should be looking at, coordinators. Right, we've covered quite a bit.
Right now, it's just messaging.
Yeah.
And start coordinating different areas.
Yeah. Working across. Reservation is a US term. Like all 5 political parties in Canada, each reservation has their own leadership, the clans. I don't think it's the same. First Nation clans are not the same as
clans
the
are
political
the families
parties.
that are the families within the tribe. So I'm from the Blackfoot tribe.
Yeah.
My clan is the Gore family.
Yeah, and they're not a political party. Like you can't say that clan leadership is like all 5 political parties in Canada. That's because that's ridiculous. So
that's okay. It's what we're giving to them is information and knowledge, right?
Yeah, and Valerie says we only have hereditary chief in Manitoba, and he's a white guy. Really? Could I be a hereditary chief? Buffalo Point First Nation.
Well, you look like one now because you shaved.
I look like you noticed. Yeah, I had to shave. I had to look at myself in the mirror and ask if I need to keep doing this because it's an uphill battle trying to create this kind of system for help Indigenous peoples create this system and fund it yourself and keep pushing through, right? So I was like, I better shave and make sure that I still look like I did when I was young. Oh, his dad was adopted into the family, then he became chief. He had his kids with his wife. Okay. So I have to get Stacy, can you adopt me? And then I'll marry an auntie.
You're already adopted.
Okay, but now I gotta find an auntie, and then have kids, and then I can become your hereditary chief.
No, I'm banning you from any aunties on my reserve. I don't want a bunch of little Brad running around.
I just got banished. Oh, I bet if they're Caucasian, there's been a lot of talk in the Assembly of Manitoba. Oh, I bet. Yeah, that's crazy. It's the whole. I'm not going to get into that. All right. Well, it's 10 o'clock. I don't know any last things. I want to log off and download this and get it uploaded. Any last words, Stacy, on kind of like Indigenous Emergency Management and this year and what?
I just got one message, and it's this: if you know, like myself or Brad or anyone within your community that's First Nation that has good experience with emergency management on First Nations, reach out to them, ask questions, invite them to your community to do a risk assessment for you, help you get started. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. It's not going to jeopardize your job or anything. That's a good strategy. If we all did that, all nations would be further ahead and we'd be all prepared and connecting.
Yeah, you've got to get a coordinator, Valerie. The Indigenous Services Canada has funding for full-time coordinators. So I'm not sure what position you're in at your nation, but there is funding through Indigenous Services Canada, and there's a pilot running in Alberta where they've funded 38 out of 40 reserves for full-time coordinators. So that should be available across the country. And yeah, Java, Kava, and Valerie, will get those links sent to you after this live. Thank you for your support. Thanks for getting on here today, Mr. Dorr.
You bet.
And
No problem. Anytime.
yeah, we'll be back. This recording will be up in a couple hours on our YouTube, and we'll be back tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. Mountain Standard Time to kind of see where things are at tomorrow based on the weather. Have a good day, everyone, and we'll be in touch.
Have a good day.
Take care.